All right, hello everybody. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. Very, very excited today. I am chatting with very talented musician, the one and only Mr. Jonah Weingarten, of course, composer, keyboardist of such bands as Pyramaze, Catalyst Crime, Echo Terra. The list goes on. Jonah, thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great. Yeah, this is very excited to chat with you. Especially, we're right around the holidays, so I appreciate the time. I know you're a busy, busy guy. You have a long list of things going on. It seems like all the time. Of course, you're in multiple bands full time, but then also budding solo career. And you do quite a bit of guest work as well. I know just announced recently you just did work on the brand new Atrocity album that's coming out this coming month, in just a few weeks, I believe. So yeah, busy guy. So thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, what do you got going on right now? What's happening with you?
Well, the thing I'm working on right now is putting some final touches on the new Pyramaze record that's coming out next year on AFM Records.
Nice.
I'm really excited about that. I do believe it's our best album yet, but I always say that. So, I mean, the fans will be the judge.
Nice.
But
Well, that's the thing. I think with Pyramaze, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you're good. Go ahead.
you guys just progressively get better. Like, and every album's fantastic, and then the next album comes out, and it's like, whoa, it's just all new, amazing stuff. So yeah, I agree. It seems like yeah, you guys are constantly improving, and yeah, I even though from the very beginning that album from 2004, a fantastic album, but yeah, just everything you guys release is gold in my opinion. It's excellent.
Well, I love that you said that, and I really appreciate that. That first Pyramids album that came out in 2004, I was 19 years old
Wow.
when I recorded that, and it was my first album that I ever done, my first professional recording of any kind,
Wow.
my first recording of any kind at all. So
Really? Wow.
yeah,
That's amazing.
and it's great. I know it's kind of considered like a classic in the genre of prog power, and so I got really lucky to be involved with something that just kind of blew up like that right away.
How did you get involved with because obviously the band is, or the majority of the band is Danish, apart from at that time Lance King, but
Right. Um, well, I got really into metal when I was in high school, and I realized that through Napster that I was discovering all these bands in Europe, and they all had keyboards in them, and I had no idea that you could even play keyboards in metal. And then I got into like Nightwish and Cradle of Filth and Children of Bodom and Dimmu Borgir and all that.
right.
And I was like, oh, cool. Well, I play keyboards, so I'm going to do this with my life. And so after I graduated from high school, I actually posted a little message on the Wacken Open Air guest book on their website. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm Jonah. I'm a keyboardist from the US, and I really want to join a band in Europe. And that day, I got an email from a fella in Denmark named Michael Kammer, and he was like, oh, I'm recording a whole album in the studio with this guy named Jacob Hansen, and I can't find a good keyboard player in all of Denmark. Do you want to try out? And I was like, heck yeah. So I sent him a VHS tape with me playing the keyboard on it.
Wow.
I got the gig, and I flew to Europe in January of 2003 and recorded. Yeah, we just sort of holed up in the studio there for a week, and I recorded all my parts, and so that's how that happened.
Wow, that's amazing. What an incredible story. That's amazing. Yeah, and especially, I mean, yeah, like you said, you were 19 years old. You're just a kid, and it still kind of blows my mind that yeah, um, Pyramids is 20 years old this year. The band is
Yeah.
20 years old this year. It's like wow, time flies. It's amazing how quickly time flies. But yeah, that's so cool. That's amazing. That's really incredible. And now you have, as you mentioned, so this will be what, the seventh album, I think, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's correct.
Excellent. Do you have I don't know if you're at liberty to discuss this at this point. You guys have a working title for the album, or
Yeah, we have an album title. I can't say it yet.
oh, cool.
That's kind of the bummer thing about that sort of stuff, is like I always just want to talk freely about
Right.
things, but I'm always like, oh, like I don't want to get in trouble, or I don't want to, give away, So yeah, it is what it is. But anyway, it's a cool album title, and I came up with it, so no big deal.
Very nice. Very cool. Is there much you can say about the album in terms of the music at this point, or is there,
Yeah, I think it's that we've really kind of locked into our sound with this newer lineup, and by the newer lineup, I mean like the lineup that we've had since 2013, so almost 10 years. But with our new singer Teria, and then Jacob Hansen, of course, joined the band in 2011, and so him and I are handling all the songwriting.
okay.
And it's a nice mix because he's a guitarist, so his stuff's more riff driven, and then I'm a keyboard player, so my stuff is more symphonic and more melody focused. And it gives the album sort of a lot of cool dynamics, and none of the songs sound the same, and so
yeah, that's what I've always loved about Pyramaze. Your music is exactly what you just said, that it's very dynamic, and there's that symphonic element, and then this cool heavy guitar riff driven element too, that I think really works well together. I think that marriage of those sounds really they're very compelling, they're very interesting. I'll admit, the first time I heard Pyramaze was the Immortal album, because I am a big Matt Barlow fan. So that I had heard that he had done this album. I'm like, what is this? I got to check this out. And I was really blown away by the music. And so that, I started kind of, following the band after that. But, it was really Matt Barlow, just I was an Iced Earth fan, and, I always loved his vocal range. And I thought that was a really cool collaboration. But I think what you guys are doing now is, and nothing, again, I love that. I love Immortal very much so, but I think what you're doing now is even more compelling and more interesting, because I think, with the Immortal, it had almost a very Iced Earth sound, and probably because of Matt Barlow. But I think now you guys have your own, I don't know, does that make sense? It just seems,
absolutely, yeah. And that kind of thing, it creates a little bit of division in the fans. You have fans of like the first two albums or the first three albums, and then you have fans of just the newer stuff, and then you have fans of everything and this and that and the other, and everyone has an opinion. But I think that at least if you look at our whole catalog of albums, that there's something for everyone. And that's like, if people just like our first two albums that we did with Lance King or whatever, then that's cool. Then you're welcome. Here, have these two albums.
Right.
You don't have to listen to our new stuff if you don't want, and vice versa. It's just sort of, it kind of is what it is. Obviously, like the Immortal album really helped put us on the map, because Matt is awesome and was such a big name, and so I hear that all the time, that people got into us because of the Immortal album, because then that was when they had first heard about Pyramaze. But I think that we had the song The Time Traveler on the last album, on the Epitaph album, that had Lance and Matt on it.
Yeah.
And that was just sort of our final, just last, like, thank you and for everything to them and to the fans of, those albums and everything like that. And like, that we're going to move on now. We're not going to just dwell on the past anymore. And this is what Pyramaze is now, is this lineup and this sound. And so
so get on board, because it kicks ass.
Yeah,
it's my message to people. So I've always found that I don't know, I've always found it odd, like you mentioned, and nothing against any fans that are specific to certain time periods, but I've always found it weird with bands like Pyramaze, or even go back further, you look at like these endless arguments, Van Halen and Black Sabbath with Ozzy versus Dio and all of that kind of stuff. And I've never really understood, because it's the same music, it's the same band apart from the vocalist, but musically I love all of that stuff, and that's why I find that strange, because I've grown I think musically with Pyramaze as well, just listening to that earlier stuff. As I mentioned, I got in with, originally with Matt Barlow, but then went back and listened to the early stuff with Lance, and was amazed by it and fell in love with it. And then, continuing forward, I'm like, oh, this band just keeps getting better and better and better. So yeah, I think you guys are doing amazing stuff. And yeah, and I'm very, very excited for the new album, because I thought Epitaph was such a cool album. And as you mentioned, with your symphonic background or view of music, I think I remember seeing an interview with you a ways back, and you talked about being a big Hans Zimmerman fan.
Hans Zimmer, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's some of those elements. I don't think you necessarily sound like him, but I think in terms of kind of not just the symphonic, but kind of this cinematic power and prowess to the way that you present music, I think is very, very compelling and very interesting for me. And I would imagine you probably have influence from composers, classical composers like Vivaldi and people like that. I'm not a musician myself, but I hear some of that in the way that you approach music, which I think is very cool.
Yeah. I mean, classical composer wise, Bach is my dude.
Okay.
I love his harpsichord concertos and all that. But yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, like, I don't really listen to a lot of metal. Like, I was really into metal in my late 20s, even I guess my early 30s or whatever. But as I've gotten older, I pretty much just listen to film score music now, or like modern classical piano. Those are my go-tos. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I put on some Eluveitie yesterday. I really like them.
Oh yeah, great band.
Folk metal. But yeah, I mean, so all my musical influences are film composers: Hans Zimmer, Danny Elfman. I'm obsessed with Thomas Newman. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
yeah, I know who he is. I don't know a lot about him, but
yeah, Alan Silvestri, of course. Steve Jablonsky has done some really cool stuff, like the Transformers scores. And he did Ender's Game. Yeah. Anything that's like big French horns. Oh, John Williams. Like, why am I not saying John Williams?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really interesting. So, well, take me back in time to your childhood. Did you come from a musical family? Like, how did you get started with piano and keyboards originally?
I did not come from a musical family. Actually, everyone in my family are like published writers and college professors.
Oh, interesting.
So my father is actually a famous poet, and he has over 20 books published. And so I mean, I grew up in an artistic and educated, household. Like, I pretty much grew up on a college campus. But I just got as a gift when I was like 6 years old, a little keyboard, and I started like just by ear figuring out how to play like the Ninja Turtles theme song and stuff like that when I was a kid, But I remember being incredibly impacted by the Batman and the Batman Returns scores by Danny Elfman. And then when I was in fourth grade, the Last of the Mohicans score. So there was a lot of like film score stuff that I was just like really, really into. And I happened to just have a keyboard. It was just given to me as a gift. And then so I was learning how to play it on my own and figuring things out by ear. And then, so when I was in fourth grade, my elementary school music teacher called my dad one day, and he was like, "Oh, great, what did Jonah do now?" Because I was always the class clown, So he thought I had just gotten in trouble. And she's like, No. Like, do you know how talented your son is? And he was like, I had no idea. But then, so he got really excited, and he bought me like a newer, better keyboard. And then I started playing piano like with my elementary school jazz band, just by ear and by improvising and everything.
Oh, wow.
So I'm 100% self-taught. I tried taking piano lessons and stuff like that, but I just never could. I always just wanted to do my own thing. So I don't know how to read or write, sheet music or anything like that.
Oh, wow. I would have no idea. You're so incredibly talented. I would have Yeah, it's like Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, I'm always surprised when you find out that some amazing musician cannot read or write music. Like, wow, that's incredible. Yeah,
I
especially
mean,
I wish I had that kind of that ear. I wish I could. I'm not a musician, but I wish I had that kind of ear to where you could, um, yeah. I mean, self-taught. I mean, that's incredible.
well, you support music in other ways. Your music needs fans.
Right.
Music needs people that have cool podcast shows and all that. You are just as important, because otherwise we would all just be banging on our instruments and no one would listen, you know.
This is true. This is true. But that's just cool that especially considering what the type of music that you're producing. That's amazing to me that you don't read and write. That's really, because I mean you're doing these very intricate, big, bombastic pieces. That's fascinating to me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I suppose that's the irony of it now, is that my main like thing that I do is to compose orchestration for all these, all the different instruments in an orchestra, and to put it all together into metal. And I don't know, I'm learning words like staccatos and, you know, my mind's drawing a blank now, but all the different sort of like intonations or,
Right.
ways of playing instruments. And in my head, I know what it's supposed to sound like, but then I have to be like, okay, well, this is a staccato part or a marcato, or, sounds like an avocado kind of, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I need an avocado here.
Yeah. I need
Yeah.
an avocado. I need a ricotta right here.
Mhm.
Various Italian cheeses we need in this section. Nice.
Oh, you almost made my drink come out my nose there.
Sorry. So along with I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump around, but I was just thinking about this. So because I talked to Zoe not too long ago. So along with the new Pyramaze material you guys are working on, also Catalyst Crime is working on new material that'll probably be coming out this coming year, more towards the end of the year, because she's so busy with Cannibal, or not Cannibal Corpse, with Cradle of Filth right now.
Yeah.
So can you tell me anything about what's going on with Catalyst Crime at this point, like what you guys are working
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, we're working on another album. Like during the COVID pandemic, whatever stuff, I wrote like 2 or 3 albums worth of material.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we just took a bunch of and we composed orchestrals first and then add guitars later. So I wrote songs that are all orchestral and everything like that, and then they add guitars and drums after the fact. And so I know they're working on like drum ideas and guitar ideas, and I think the plan is that we're gonna try to record some stuff this winter and spring.
Oh, cool. Very cool. That's
But yeah, I don't know. I'm not in charge. I just play the keyboard. So
Yeah, I mean, that debut album I thought was fantastic. What a great album, and of course you guys just released a single from that, the final single from the and a video to accompany that. But yeah, which definitely because the album came out 2021, right?
yeah, yeah, a little over a year ago.
Yeah, so it was a nice little kind of wet the whistle again and get everybody excited for new material. So with the release of that, and then of course you and Zoe both worked on Atrocity, their new album, worked with Alex Kroll, and yeah, very cool stuff. What I've heard so far, very exciting and very cool. How did you get involved with that?
So Alexander Kroll produced and mixed the first Catalyst Crime album, and then Leaves Eyes, his other band, hired me to do the score for their Viking documentary.
Oh, nice.
And I also composed the album intro to the most recent Leaves Eyes album.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, and so Alex approaches me periodically to do work for him, and yeah, he wanted me to add some symphonic stuff to that Atrocity song. I think it came out really cool.
Yeah,
and the video is pretty sweet too.
Yeah, that video is incredible. Yeah, that's an amazing video. Yeah, I've watched it a few times since it was released the other day. I'm like, wow, this is great. And it's
Yeah.
it's always cool. I mean, I know Zoe does some harsh vocals on, she's done that in the past, but it's always cool to hear her, because she's got such a beautiful melodic voice, and it's cool to hear her kind of let loose and do some harsh vocals. And yeah, that was great. That was very cool.
Yeah. I hope she does some more of that on the new Catalyst Crime album because she does it so well, you know.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Hmm. Let out that anger, girl. Let it out.
Yeah. And you've done, as I mentioned, you've done a lot of guest work with, I mean, you're a very sought after musician. I mean, which is great. And I mean, you've worked with, also the Matt Barlow connection. You've done work with on a couple of the Ashes of Aries albums. I think the last two, right?
Yeah.
As well as Sirius Black and Mind Maze. I mean, the list goes on. And where do you find time for all of this? Because I know you also score, you can do compositions for video games and for sporting
Yeah.
events and television, and I don't know how you keep all of this straight. I'm flabbergasted, one, at your talent, but also just at your level of organization with all of this music that you're dealing with. But it's got to be pretty cool to be able to be entrenched like that.
Yeah. Well, all the work I get, it comes in waves. And so I'll just like get overwhelmed because I'll have 4 or 5 albums and projects or things I have to do all at the same time. And then I get them done. And then it's just like,
Feast or famine kind of a situation.
yeah, then there'll be like, a month, maybe 2 months where it's just like, and then I'm like, well, I know this is the calm before the storm, and it always is. And then I get contacted by, a bunch of bands. Oh, Jonah, we need you to add some keyboards to this, that, and the other. And yeah, I've done so every album that I play on that comes out in vinyl, I always have the vinyl delivered to me and like frame it and hang it up in my living room.
Oh, cool.
And so it's taking over my living room.
Nice.
And I'm like, I'm not retiring from music until my entire house, until every square inch of every wall is covered in Jonah vinyl. So, in my living room, in my dining room right now, I've got all the Pyramaze records and the 2 Sirius Black ones and the 2 Ashes of Aries, the Halcyon Way album, the Pyramaze album that I did. There's a Swedish like melodic black metal band called Night Crowned. They're on Noble Demon Records. I've done 3 records for them now.
Oh, wow.
There's a band from Norway called Confidential. I did all the symphonics for their album that was out on Massacre Records. I think that came out last year or early this year or something. I can't remember. What else? I know of 7 albums that I've played on that are coming out in 2023. So I think this is going to be one of my biggest years yet. And plus I've committed to releasing at least one solo track of my own stuff a month. I have a Spotify page now.
Yeah.
I just put my first song ever up on there too. It's a holiday kind of themed epic.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. The Year's End, right, is the name of the track. Yeah, very cool. It's got it obviously it's not necessarily a Christmas song or anything, but it's got a very kind of winter solstice festive kind of vibe to it. I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought that was a very cool song. So do you have put an album? I mean, I know do you have plan on doing a solo album in the coming year, or?
I don't think an album necessarily. I think I'm just going to be releasing the stuff digitally, and maybe at some point, if a label or something wanted to like put a bunch of it out in one thing, then maybe that could be cool. But I'm mostly gonna just start focusing on building up kind of a catalog of stuff. And so, I mean, this holiday song, the Year's End song, that's different than the other stuff that I'm going to be putting out. I'm doing a lot of like big, epic, kind of Celtic-y Viking film score stuff with like big thundering war drums and big French horn arrangements and piano melodies. And I have some fantastic guest musicians on some of the tracks, like so yeah, I don't even want to give it away yet, but um, some names that you know that are phenomenal talents.
Cool. That sounds,
Um,
that's very exciting.
well, okay, I'll just tell you. So the first single that I'm going to put out next month is called Northern Shores, and that song features Anna Murphy from Cellar Darlings and Ella Vite on hurdy-gurdy, and she did some choirs on it also.
Nice.
It's so epic. I'm just really excited to get it out and for people to hear.
I can't wait to hear that. Yeah, she's an amazing talent too. Yeah, wow, that's going to be incredible. That's very cool. You mentioned, you know, doing these big epic things, you know, with French horns and things like that. So are you doing synthesized French horns? Are you hiring musicians or?
So I use VSTs. I use like industry standard, you know, Hollywood movie score level VSTs. And so those are external sound banks that I'm controlling through my piano.
Oh, interesting.
That I play through MIDI. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And the just the amount of realism and the way that you can control the modulation and the intonation and the impacts of every note, and you know, to have, you can like play a brass note and then you can have it like swell. And I think of myself as an accent point based composer in a way, because I like to, like, when the next part is coming, I like to really build up to it, and then it's like to make it really dramatic, you know, to have like big cymbals crash into it, and you know, have like brass kind of rise up and big choirs, and you know, so it always sounds like the apocalypse is about to happen, you know.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely your style. That's cool. Yeah, that's great. Wow, you've got so much happening right now. That's so exciting. Yeah, 2023. Yeah, the year of Jonah. It sounds like. Yeah, I'm excited for all of this coming out. I mean, your solo work, yeah, the new Pyramaze album, Catalyst Crime. This is going to be incredible. This is going to be, yeah, what an incredible year.
Yeah, I'm playing on some really big albums too that I can't even say yet.
Okay.
It's that thing like, oh, you can't say anything about it yet, you know.
Right.
Secret or something.
Yeah. Well, and I get it. I mean, and a lot of times I know it's the record companies that are like, no, we don't want anybody to know about this right now. So, you know, or the musicians themselves. Yeah, it makes sense. I get it. But yeah. But yeah, fascinating. Yeah, man, that's going to be so cool. I can't wait to hear all of this. This is so exciting. Well, Jonah, this has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. For those of you watching, look in the description below. There are links to Pyramaze and as well as Catalyst Crime and Jonah's page to check out his stuff, his solo stuff. You will be, if you have not heard this before, you will be very excited and very happy to check this music out. Definitely pick up some Pyramaze, one of my favorite bands, just killer stuff, and Catalyst Crime too. What an amazing band, amazing talent in that band as well. So Jonah, thank you so much for chatting with me today. This has been an absolute pleasure and an honor.
Thank you for having me.